Welcome to another edition of Snapsight Spotlights. And today, our very honored guest is Tahira. Hello, Tahira.
Hello, Sina. Hello, Vamshi. Hey, hi there. How are you?
Good. Thanks
Good.
so much for taking the time. We
Of
can
course.
imagine how busy you are because we are like 5 weeks away from IMEX.
Yes, well, we've launched the program. Super exciting. So, thanks to some little help from our friends at Spark and Snapsight, everything sounds really good. It's looking good.
We
Yeah.
love help of AI.
We love help of AI. Sometimes you get stuck on the session descriptions, and I can just get a little booster help, and that's
For sure.
amazing for me. So, I
For
love
sure.
it.
For sure. For sure. It makes our busy life easier and a bit more efficient and everything. And I had a look at the program yesterday because I was planning my Thursday and I was
Wow.
highlighting some sessions. So I'm obviously very excited for everything that's coming up. I mean, I love IMAX, but okay,
Me too.
I shouldn't. Like
Yeah.
everybody knows that, anyways. Um, so welcome also to the people who are watching us, who are watching live. So let us know where you're watching us from. And if you are going to be at IMEX Frankfurt in 5 weeks, oh my God, I'm really looking forward to seeing everybody there and Vamshi and Tahira as well, of course. So let us know if you're watching right now and if we meet you soon in Frankfurt. But today's talk is obviously about Snapsight and IMEX and their connection. Because if you've been to IMEX Frankfurt last year, you have seen the nice QR codes in front of the session rooms or in front of the session setups. They are not really rooms, right? But we know what we are talking about, the separations in the hall nine, right?
Malls-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, the ocean and etc. etc. I'm always excited about the design of that, but anyways, and so Snapsight has like a little QR code in front of those rooms where you can scan it, and it's also on some of the presentations. You can scan it and you can see the live takeaways of the sessions, and of course also afterwards. So
I can't
if you
even tell you how
yeah.
excited I was about that. So, we'd sort of talked about this. Wouldn't it be great if we had these, key takeaways from the sessions as people came out and, or after the show. And then I opened my app during last year and saw key takeaways in the session. I literally, like, if I could do a cartwheel, I would have. I was so excited because it's so nice to be able, isn't it, to sit in a session and
Yeah,
not have to always take notes.
I agree. No, you
So,
can fully focus on what the speakers are saying, think about a question that you might have. And also, I was in some sessions where there was like a free seat. And if I would want to say something, I could go up to the front and be kind of like part of the panelists. And that's, amazing. I can fully concentrate on that. And I know the notes are taken by AI, so it's amazing. I was very happy to see that. And I'm going to share the link to the takeaways from IMEX America, actually the most recent IMEX that took place in the chat in a second, so everybody can also have a look at how it looked like and what you missed if you haven't been there. So make sure to come to Frankfurt in 5 weeks. But anyways, so Tahira, maybe like tell us a little bit about, like, you just mentioned already, like, that you're very happy about the relationship, the connection that you guys have, and using and implementing Snapsight to, bring additional value to the attendees and your team as well. But tell us a little bit more about that from your own words.
oh no, I do. I think it's amazing. So it's, AI is one of those things. It's been around for a long time. We've been working with AI for some people have been working with it actually for decades, but certainly, in the last decade, we really started to see it ramping up, ramping up, ramping up. But more in the background. And so to be able to, when it came out as, here's AI, it's in the front, we can start using it with our events. It's such a great tool. And that, they really made Snapsight so specific for just events, and the different tools that we've been able to pull in and use between the two, Spark and Snapsight, within IMEX has been fantastic. So, on the one side, if we get really long speaker bios or speakers aren't sending bios, we can build bios, which is amazing. And so when we're putting the program out into the world initially, because it comes out now, launched last week, so you've got some time to plan. So, which I think is a really important thing. But IMEX is a busy show. We all, anyone who's been to it knows it's, it's a marathon in a minute is how I always look at it. So, but when you can plan ahead for the sessions that you want to go to, build your meeting schedule around that. But if you miss a session, you get trapped in one of those amazing hallway conversations, or a meeting runs a bit long, to be able to then go in and see the key takeaways from the session, you at least can get a good sense of, a little bit of that learning that even if you didn't get to have the full time, if you did have the full session, you're able to just, as somebody just said, you're so much more present in the session.
Yeah.
And afterwards, you still have those little reminders you can go back and look at. And I think it's been really great. And so, with our technical team and our Marcoms team, the people that take these key takeaways and do things with them after the show, we have regular meetings, often with Vamshi, and our other partners at Snapsight. And so it's a very fluid working process. And they've been able to work together for us to identify from a user experience what we think would be really beneficial, and then to be able to build that into the dev time so that it, by the time that we get to our next show, it's populated. So, one of our examples of that was, people being able to do surveys. Basically, a session survey pops up right away. And so we're able to capture information right away about what people thought. Our team works so hard at bringing the right speakers in for the right topics at the right time for what our audience needs. And, having that either questioned or validated is really important, because it allows us to continue to iterate for future years. So,
you mentioned that your Marcom team, they use the takeaways as well. Like, for what do they use them for?
So I think what we know is, for the majority of people, we're all super excited to get takeaways, but we're also all really busy. So we're not going to go back and read those full session transcripts, so we don't publish them. But we have them available because they are all produced in the background by Snapsight. Maybe Vamshi can tell us how that magically happens in the background. But what our Marcoms team is able to do is to take, so instead of just taking one session summary and saying, oh, this, here's a summary of this session, that's nice, but it's not really that contextual. So, IMEX really is the global heartbeat of the industry. What that means is that we are servicing the entire, MICE, Meetings, Incentive, Convention, and Exhibition industry under one roof at the show. And each of those sectors has their own specific needs, but also a lot of crossover. So, for example, ESG, our environmental social governance needs, particularly in Europe, where there's so many regulations that are coming out in May and June this year, are going to be critical for the event industry to understand our role in achieving a whole bunch of new targets and reporting on them. So we have a lot of sessions. I think it's like around at least a dozen sessions that touch on different aspects of ESG. So what's going to be useful for the Marcoms team is to pull transcripts from all of those and not have to read and copy and paste and type, but to put them all together using the magic of this tool, and start to see the thematics, but also to be able to, because of the way the sessions are set up, make sure we're, attributing the right speakers in the right sessions and all of those things that make a good report. And so it's just a really, it's just been a phenomenal tool for all of us.
Yeah. Vamshi, can you elaborate a little bit on that, that the team can combine the takeaways according to the topics?
Yes, that's a Vamshi question for sure.
How does that work?
Yeah, one of the features, I think one of the reasons we love working with IMEX team is IMEX team is one which uses every single feature that we have developed in a really good way. So when we had this Spark and Snapsight integration, so Snapsight, you have key takeaways, summaries, and everything, and then in the background we do have a full transcript with speaker diarization, who spoke what and everything. So with that Spark and Snapsight integration, what you can actually do is you can directly pull a session. You don't need to upload anything. You can just select which session you want, or you can select multiple sessions and then do summary, or if you want to do something else, you'll be able to do that. So that sort of gave them that flexibility. And with the large volume of sessions, right? Last time we just did the main education sessions, and it was 100 sessions or something. And I know we haven't captured the whole thing. Yeah. So it is more. And with this one, Frankfurt, this time we are doing specialist education sessions also. So it is going to be a huge volume. And then, yeah, that works in the background. And using Spark now, you can use, like, there are multiple tasks in Spark. Like, if you want to create a LinkedIn post, blog post, versus if you want to do an analysis, you can use all of these tasks on all of your sessions. So that's the power that it will give you when you have large amount of sessions and Spark and Snapsight integrated into one.
Nice. Okay. And also, because IMEX Frankfurt is in Germany, obviously, and you have also a lot of German-speaking people there. People can simply select the language, I really like that. So we are not like, oh, it's always going to be in English, or we don't have to be afraid of missing out anything. We can just select the language in which we want to read those takeaways. And I think that's fabulous and makes the event very inclusive.
Well, it is fabulous. And it's also, I think, everybody learns differently, right? So sometimes, you're learning by listening. Sometimes you're learning by questioning. Sometimes you're learning by doing. But it's also, there's a lot of things around sort of learning and performance design. And one of those things is, the ideas of recency. So you're going to remember what is most recent that you've heard. And then there's the forgetting curve, which is that we actually forget most of what we learn, as a fundamental human trait. So when we can take things and anchor them in, and part of that anchoring is going to come from, discussing them afterwards or reading something that helps to cement that information in. And so that we're able to, think about not just the learning journey for our participants from the design of the sessions at the beginning, looking at the type of content and the delivery of the content and who's delivering it, but also thinking through, what's your on-site experience, which in IMEX's case, our design constraint is you're on essentially a trade show floor and you're going to be listening on headsets, which is also, that actually kind of forces you to focus a little bit, but it's, it's going to be a much more of a listening environment. So the more that we can then do with things like a written takeaway to help with that, diminishing the forgetting curve, and reinforcing the learning, people are going to leave with that whole richer learning experience without really actually thinking through that that's what they've done. And so to have the tools that can continue to iterate and improve what we're doing, and also the speed at which you can iterate. And, it's not, oh, this is, we have an idea. Okay, well, we can add that to the list of the 43 things that people have asked for us. And you can expect to see that in dev in 11 months.
Yeah.
That's, the Moore's law of technology, right? Like that time is really diminishing on how quickly you can bring things to market to support us.
Yeah, no, for sure. And also I saw like they, like you guys produce post-event reports, right? Because Snapsight is not only used for the education program on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at the show, but also on Edu Monday, right? Like Smart Monday.
In America, we have Smart Monday, and we used it for a limited amount of sessions there. And in Frankfurt, we don't have a Smart Monday, but we do have our specialist education, so the association focus and exclusively corporate.
Exactly.
So, which are two very specific types, groups of people. But we will be using it, and we'll be using it in a different way with association focus. Martin Cirque has really been working with us on the design of that program. And it's been really fun, actually, because we're both, like little meeting designer minds. We're just like, okay, how can we do this?
How can we use it? Yeah.
Yeah. But one of the things that, is to break people into sort of fairly large working groups to tackle quite specific subjects, but to be able to capture those key takeaways, which we're now going to be able to do. And, he's worked really closely with Snapsight. So, one of the things, of course, is, well, who are going to be the note takers and all of these different things. But again, we've been able to really work closely with Snapsight to make that part very simple. And so that the output of that process will become very simple. So a lot of work's gone into the front end design of what's going to happen so that the output's going to be very simple to achieve. And that's what we need with our technology partners. Anybody who's working in events for any amount of time, you have a tech stack that's a stack, and you need every part of it to work to achieve the things that you need it to achieve. And so we've been able to just continue to iterate and achieve more to improve the end user experience with every show, which has been, that speaks to the partnership.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that the show doesn't end on Thursday, right? But if we get those reports, if we still have the link for the session takeaways, we can always go back to them, and we can, tell our colleagues about it, and keep learning. And yeah, just let's not forget what happened the last week and when we were at the show. It's really to like repurpose the content, reuse it, don't forget it, and that's how we learn. And that's where we can always go back to like that session, the content, who were the speakers, and connect with them as well.
Well, if you think again about the users, so what happens quite often is you from a team, again, everyone's busy, so it's going to be like, Sina, this time it's your turn to go to IMEX, but you have to come back and do a lunch and learn report to the team.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so you're like madly trying to take notes and pull out the key things and apply them back to your own workplace. And so again, this just takes out a whole layer of that level of panic of how am I going to report back to the team on this, because you'll be able to go and look at the key takeaways and actually have time. This is the kind of thing you'll do on the train or the plane home, is sit and be like, oh, I can pull out these 3 points, and you might be doing a little lunch and learn PowerPoint, or you might just be doing an oral report, but it's all there for you to go back and have time to think about, how does this information apply specifically to our companies or our clients' situations. And it's just a really nice way to be able to also achieve that follow-on experience.
I agree. Yeah. And also, do you use it, like, do you check which sessions were most popular or which topics really resonated with the audience, to then also, check like, okay, we need to focus more on this topic, or next time at IMEX America, we also need to focus on that. Like, do you also analyze like these kind of like
we
data
analyze
points?
everything. We're very data driven at IMEX. Nothing happens. It's not just nothing happens by a feeling. Everything, it's a feeling plus the data to back it up. And what I actually like most about IMEX, and always have, so I've worked on 5 shows, but I've been to 18, including that, between the two, IMEX America and IMEX Frankfurt. And also, I've been in a lot of different roles at IMEX. So I first went as an exhibitor, been a speaker, I've been a buyer, I've been when I worked at Quick Mobile, we were the app provider at that time for IMEX, which is now part of Cvent. So I have a lot of different lenses on the show. But what I've always liked is that there's never been a, this is good enough, right? So it's always like, how can we iterate? And with the education program, we have so much flexibility. We're given so much flexibility in how it's built, so we receive a lot of people give us submissions for what they'd like to present, which is fantastic. But it's also sometimes they're not what we're hearing in the market that people want to, talk about. And so because we have so many people who are out in the market all of the time, we have a lot of people who are members of so many organizations across. I don't want to start naming them because I'll miss one. There's many people who are members of most of the major industry organizations. I'm out all of the time going to different kinds of events to hear different kinds of speakers. And so that we can bring in things and pair people up in unique ways. And so quite often our metric isn't number of people, it's impact. So for example, with our Tough Talks that we, brought in last year, they're done, closed doors, Chatham House rules. There's no takeaways brought from these. But, last year we did mental health and suicide, menopause and perimenopause, and social anxiety at work and at events. And there didn't need to be public takeaways of those. The takeaways were in people's hearts from those. So we have different types of we don't need to always measure everything in that way. What we're able to do in the sessions that are, our event logistics, we've got this year one whole day in the Ocean Room is all event experience design. So we have these amazing designers that are doing 25-minute presentations throughout the day, and then we'll encapsulate them at the end. But imagine the kind of key takeaway document that we're going to be able to report, we're going to be able to produce from a day that starts with storytelling and looks at, all of these different aspects of experience design. And we're going to be able to pull those transcripts and have an incredible report that can be delivered back to industry with some of the best minds in the industry. So with I'm not sure how I'm actually answering your question, but just to say that we're always listening and we're always responding to what the market is asking for. And when we're able to validate that with the takeaways that come from people in the session surveys, the immediate session surveys, as well as the larger post-event survey that we do, we can see where we're on track.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's not always a numbers game. Sometimes it really is about, were the people that needed that information in the session and did they get what they needed? So, and then we also have, last year, of course, we had 14 sessions on AI, and every single one of them, had, when Koya Bogdams did, from Bogdams did his AI session, it was, 200 people standing room only. But that's where the headsets again come in handy, because everybody had a headset so they could, still hear what was going on. So, and of course, all of those takeaways, will continue to be valuable for people.
Yeah.
I just want to add one point there. When we also give the session feedback, right, we also do a kind of a sentiment analysis. It is not just the numbers on whether people rated 5-star, 3-star, but we also do a kind of sentiment analysis, which is actually again prompted by IMEX, that okay, we just don't need the raw data, but we also need to know what are the positive comments, what are the neutral and negative comments as well. So that sort of gives better picture on what people are really thinking than just seeing some star ratings and anything. So that is good. And one more thing that I wanted to mention was that IMEX actually shaped us how Snapsight was built as well. One of the basic feature that we have right now is actually prompted by them, as in switching the locations. So IMEX was the big show that we have done first. And then there we realized that, okay, there are like 5 locations, 6 locations going on, and then you should be able to switch between them and everything. And working on a scale of IMEX, like being able to do 100 sessions, 150 sessions, managing the logistics of it, we were actually, from a product point of view, we have become much stronger. Like the backend system of how the audio gets captured and everything got much more refined by it. And now I can say that for this IMEX Frankfurt, we are completely prepared. We know how the backend should work and everything. So yeah, so we are indeed partnering with them to learn from them, as in like how an application like this work in a very large trade show like this.
Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah. Good to see that a good partnership is, brings values for both, That's how it should be, definitely. Tahira, like in general, like what potential do you see for Snapsight for events? So big trade shows, but also conferences. So, for Snapsight or AI, if we go very general and very broad, like what's your take on that, and how do you see the potential for them?
Well, I think it goes back to what we said about, the learning and performance design, because imagine any, any association event is always going to be topic specific, right? So say you're going to, doctors who help people who are purple. So if those doctors who help people are purple, nobody really wants to be purple. So imagine when you start to take those takeaways from, 14 or 15 sessions about why people are purple and put them together, you could probably find really some very interesting scientific discoveries from something like that. So when you are able to take the transcripts and create reports, that is so valuable for any kind of event, because every industry is having conferences to bring the latest in technology and innovation to the forefront. The speakers who are coming are your leading speakers across any topic, but nobody can go to any session. When I think of the large medical conferences I used to work on, you'd have 54 breakouts. You can't go to 54 break. You can go to, so you have to choose one, but at any time there might be 5 that are interesting to you. So, and then to be able to, as an association, have that kind of knowledge and power easily available to you, to not have to have 54 note takers in every room who then are either writing or typing notes, and then you have to figure out how to put all those together. To have now AI is helping us really pull things together in ways that are so meaningful. I mean, it is, knowledge is power, and you're giving people access to the best knowledge in the world. And I think it's just such a valuable tool for any kind of any kind of association. And then for the different types of corporate meetings, it's the same thing. You can't be everywhere all at once, but you want to give the people that are working with you all of this information. And this is an additional way to provide particularly post-event information delivery, but again, also to get that real-time feedback, which is, and it's not very often that you will pivot. We all are really don't like that. But there's going to be times when you're going to be getting feedback on day 1 or day 2 that you might be thinking, oh my gosh, like we really need to fill in something. And that's where a lot of sessions are, a lot of conferences will leave time for, those, open sessions or unconference sessions, whatever we want to call those, but where, people can put in pop-up topics. Well, imagine if as the organizer, you can start to see comments and holes and can say, hey, Sina, you know what? We've got all of these sessions on AI, but nobody's talking about this one thing that I know you know a lot about. Can we pop you into this session? So you can be a lot more proactive as a planner. I mean, that's just the possibilities for what we can do with information is really unlimited.
Yeah, I agree. And Vamshi, if you want to add anything to that, where the potential goes to, let me know.
Like Tahira mentioned, we are actually going full on with the reports and the overall analysis as well. So this time we are going to we are collaborating with them in creating a report for each track. Like Tahira mentioned, there is a track for sustainability, there is one for tech and everything. So we are going to do detailed reports on those, and then detailed report combining every single thing. That is what I actually tell a lot of my customers as well, that this actually creates a new possibility of looking all of your content at once. So let's say 40 sessions combining everything into once, then you might actually find some really good themes that we might have not thought about before, and then those are actually supported by the codes and everything, right? So that, and then covering really great discussions like IMEX policy forum is also a good thing. So that is a one-day whole thing, and then you actually create a report out of that is really useful for the whole industry, not just the people who came to that session. But yeah, being able to read that report, I actually personally learned a lot from that report as well. Yeah.
Great. You see, you don't even have to be there. You just read a report. No. But of course, we should really attend everything what we can. Another audience member is asking Vamshi, are you looking at integrating the social media feedback into future analysis?
Yeah, that's a really good idea, actually. Yeah. We are considering like we want to nail this session feedback thing first, but I think that would be great. I actually remember one event that I went to in Las Vegas where they're asking, okay, you guys are not streaming this in Twitter. I'm like, okay, that's an interesting idea. So yeah, we learn a lot from our attendees as well. So yeah.
Of course. Yeah. And they're always implementing feedback. So it's good to get ideas, from all sides of the world. Last question, Tahira, before we wrap up. What are the highlights of this year's education program for IMEX Frankfurt?
Oh my goodness. I'm so excited for Frankfurt. So we have, like I already said, we have a full day on experience design. We have at least a dozen sessions that touch on different aspects of ESG. We have the way that the leadership track worked out. We have these extreme leaders coming. So, we have Sarah Furness, who is a RAF combat helicopter pilot. So her lessons on leadership, Matt Garman, who rode across the Atlantic, Josh Stinton, who's a charity adventurer. So, Rob Hosking, who is a former police officer. So bringing their extreme leadership lessons into what we can do with leadership across the board. And then, on the other side of that is Jo Fuller, who her company is called the Merry Menopause. And so she talks about cyclical leadership. So lots of different, really interesting topics around that. And some really great design. So design is a new thing for us this year, a new track for us. It's not a new thing. We've been doing design for years. But our own head of design is doing a session with Tobias Geisler, who runs Vape Studios in Frankfurt, China, Dubai. But looking at, how is design an anchor? And there'll be a limited availability tour of the design archives at Messe Frankfurt to go along with that. And then, of course, we've got, tech and innovation that happens, throughout the show as well, both in Hall 9 and a little bit with Merits. And of course, Hall 9 is going to be super active. We know that thousands of people go through the education, and we're just really prepared to deliver a fantastic show. So I'm going to encourage people, when they download the app, go look at the education first and the times for the sessions that you really care about. Make a little time to pop upstairs into our well-being room and do some Qigong or some stretching or a singing bowl meditation, and plan that first, and then plan your meetings with all of your partners.
Very good. Very, very good advice. All right. Vamshi, any last words from your side?
Yeah, looking forward to IMEX actually. So I'll be going there, like you mentioned. I might actually go to the well-being room every day, at least once. So that will be really useful for me managing on-site and being an exhibitor. So yeah, that's a really good tip for me.
Nice. Okay, so everybody register for IMEX Frankfurt if you haven't yet. And if you have, great, check out the program. It's launched. You can already highlight the sessions that you're interested in. Vamshi's going to be there. I'm going to be there. So we are really looking forward to seeing everybody there. Tahira, thanks so much for taking the time today. I know it's quite early in the US, but we really enjoyed chatting with you and seeing the value of this partnership between Snapsight and IMEX.
And we do value it. So thank you so much. Someone said, when is the app available? It's like a week or two before the show, but the program is available on the website now. So.
Exactly. That's where I'm already checking, and preparing my agenda. So preparations are in full swing, so we are all excited for it. All right. Tahira, thanks a lot again. And Vamshi as well, of course, to you too. And we see everybody very soon in my home country, in Frankfurt for IMEX. Until then, bye-bye.